Hello and welcome to Kingston Now. I'm Jimmy Buff. This week we're in the hallowed halls of City Hall with Kingston Mayor Shayne Gallo for a review of his first year in office. Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning, Jimmy.
How does that sound to hear your first year in office? Has it gone by quickly?
Like the speed of light.
Yeah.
It's been a challenge since day one. At times it appears daunting, but I'm just really fortunate and blessed to have quite a bit of public support with what we're trying to accomplish here in Kingston. And the department heads and the employees of the city, I'm very proud.
Well, you knew coming in there would be some expected things you have to deal with as mayor, like a budget or contract negotiations. But there are some curveballs, some unexpected things that came up. For instance, some issues with the fire department. You've had a sinkhole open that threatens to, swallow the entire city at this point, or a sinkhole on top of a sinkhole. You've got closings of hospitals and schools that all came up in the past year. There was no way to anticipate that, so how has that affected the experience this past year?
Well, it's as I said, it's daunting, and you really have to try to compartmentalize and do triage and try to prioritize those issues, okay, as they occur, and then try to assess the situation and apply the resources that are available to try to address those issues. I mean, no one expected nor anticipated last year this time that there would be school closings nor there would be a hospital closing next door. No one expected that the sinkhole would resurrect, if you will. So suffice to say, you're correct. I knew there was going to be specific quality of life issues, which I ran on my campaign to address so that we can stimulate an awareness of Kingston where people want to come and live and do business here. And I knew there would be a challenge with contract negotiations. I knew there would be a challenge with respect to the budget and economic development. But again, as you made explicit, and it's unequivocal that I was not anticipating, some of the issues that you just surfaced, that have surfaced during my first year in office.
Let's talk about those in a little bit. Let's stay with the quality of life platform. What has the mayor's office in City Hall and the city done in the past year to further that agenda?
Well, quality of life really involves just addressing the following. In various neighborhoods in the city of Kingston, there was a need to step up code enforcement, which we did with Block by Block, which was started under the prior administration. But also, too, I asked the council to review the city code and made proposals with respect to amending certain pieces of local law. I.e., for instance, the unsafe and dilapidated building, which was amended to afford the city more of a fast track, if you will, to prosecute those offenders. Also, too, the council recently adopted the Tenant Accountability Act, which provides for more of a level playing field. Landlords, most of the landlords in Kingston are good people. And they want to ensure that their investment appreciates, not depreciates. They want to ensure that their tenants, are not committing a nuisance to those who live next to the property. So the Tenant Accountability Act does require responsibility now with respect to tenants, who are going to lease, from a landlord in the city. Also, too, we've stepped it up with the nuisance abatement local law, prosecuting those individuals who substantially interfere with the use and the enjoyment of others' property. So in sum, the council has responded to specific legislative initiatives, either reviewing the existing code at my request, amending same, or else actually also adopting proposals, i.e. the Parental Accountability Act, the Tenant Accountability Act, to ensure that the City Building and Safety Division has ample resources and the personnel. They approved an additional part-time employee, code enforcement officer. Going forward in 2013, I'm going to be using some community development block grant monies to hire a code enforcement officer part-time specifically for Midtown code enforcement. Now, on the public safety end, I can say that Chief Tinty and Chief Reinhardt have really demonstrated and stepped up as to quality of life in Kingston.
And early on in your first term, there was a huge drug action that took place in the city of Kingston.
Operation Clean Sweep, which was a year and a half investigation, which resulted in over 100 arrests of particularly a number of individuals who were involved in gangs in Kingston and were coming up from the city, Brooklyn, and the Bronx, and setting up shop here. And as that clean sweep operation clearly demonstrates, Kingston's no longer open for business. And Chief Tinty and his personnel have done a marvelous job. Chief Tinty has really been engaged by using social media to that end to assist with investigative matters. He's put in a presence of a street crimes unit. Chief Tinty has also, true to his word, I requested this last year, that he would put back into play the Youth Bureau at the Hodge Center. He's developed a detective division now that's very engaged, very effective. If I get a call from someone, a property owner or a citizen, that there's suspicious activity or there's some kind of potentially unlawful activity, the chief is right on it, and in some instances, action has been taken and resulted within 7 days or less of an arrest of that individual or individuals.
We'll continue the review in a moment. You're watching Kingston Now. We're at City Hall. We'll be back in a minute. Welcome back to Kingston Now. We're at City Hall with Kingston Mayor Shayne Gallo. Before the break, we were talking about the quality of life stuff going on in Kingston. One of the things you talked about a lot during your campaign was developing the series of rail trails in the city to connect to rail trails outside of the city. Has anything progressed in the past year in that regard?
Yes, I'm very, very enthusiastic about this because the land trust with the Trolley Museum Board, we've spent the last 7-8 months trying to negotiate an agreement between those two groups for purposes of facilitating a rail trail from the Strand to East Chester Street here by Burger King. Very, very excited about that because here's where it's going. Had a discussion with County Executive Mike Hine yesterday. Mike has gotten the funding necessary for the beginnings of a rail trail from Washington Avenue, not only connected to Hurley Flats, but to the Ashokan Reservoir. So our dream, if you will, is to have Elmendorf Street be connected to Washington Avenue, and literally you would be able to go to the Ashokan Reservoir. The other exciting news is Rosendale is extending its rail trail into South Wall and Kingston, which would literally facilitate our residents being able to get on South Wall's access point, go to Rosendale, go to Gardner. I've biked from Rosendale to Gardner. It's a really nice rail trail.
Yeah, it's the Walk-Hill Valley Rail Trail.
It's fantastic. And apparently New Paltz is going to connect to Highland, which will literally get you to the walkway over the Hudson. That will then put you in the Dutchess Rail system, which will then put you potentially in Connecticut or Massachusetts. So you have this intermodal, interconnective network of trails, which the County of Ulster, and the city being the county seat, would be the only county and the only municipality in the entire state that would afford connectivity literally throughout the region and literally out of the state. And then we also are waiting, we should know by the end of December, our CFA application with the governor's office for the mile-long promenade for the AVR project, which would begin at North Street in Kingston and go all the way into East Kingston at a mile in length. That's exciting because we just finished the trolley refurbishment project downtown, which there's a new trolley line in, basically, which will allow the trolleys to be not only more efficient and it's aesthetically more pleasing, but we're hopeful that then this will also connect to Rotary Park. And the idea would be, you could literally take the trolley out to Rotary Park, you walk past the Kingston Point, next thing you're on North Street, now you're in East Kingston. So you have the opportunity, to really showcase the waterfront, connect into Midtown, up at the historical district, and literally outside of Kingston. And you mentioned quality of life earlier, just as a footnote. I'm pleased too because we put back music in the parks. Our seniors requested this, which was a pretty good, successful program, notwithstanding we put it up so quickly sometime in July. We had music at Catamaran Green along with down on the waterfront. Also, our Movies Under the Stars program is another example of what we tried to do and afford our residents things to do which would be free of charge, and nowadays that's very important. So the rail trails, very excited about. It feeds right into your quality of life questions, which people want that kind of activity here in the city.
You want to feel like you can go out in your own town and do some things that have some value to you and your family.
Yes, and what it would also do is has value to the city. I mean, people would come in here to use the trails. You're talking sales tax increase. You're talking people also, too, who would be very interested in literally moving here. You have weekenders coming in from the city to move into Kingston because of proximity and access to this network of trails.
Sure, I can tell you that when you read real estate ads for places in New Paltz or South, access to rail trail is often something that's included in those ads, and saying having that for properties in Kingston certainly would be a boon.
Studies show that literally the economic impact is significant. Okay, with retail, okay, and other services that are necessary, okay, to sustain that kind of activity, if you will, recreational activity.
So Kingston as the hub of a rail trail network sounds great, but our new congressman, incoming Congressman Chris Gibson, talks about Kingston as the hub of the entire area economically as well. You've met with the new congressman, I believe?
On several occasions. The congressman, prior to the election, I asked him if he would put his district offices, okay, here in Midtown. True to his word, okay, he's followed through with that. It's my understanding he might very well end up at 721 Media Center.
Yeah, you actually told me a great story that the day after he was elected, he called you.
That's correct.
To say that he was going to follow through on that.
Actually, that's accurate. He called me and I was surprised because as I stated to him, I said, Congressman, I should be calling to congratulate you. And he goes, no, I'm calling to tell you that I'm going to honor your request. And I was perplexed and I said, what is that? And he says, well, we're going to put our district offices here in Kingston. And with economic development, Chris also gets it. Chris is on Congressman Gibson's on the House Agriculture Committee. And his status is very important is on that committee as a ranking member, because what this does is, let's face it, Ulster County has over $500,000 or almost $500,000. I think it's over that agricultural industry. So there's a big push on farm fresh, local. We're going to have a wine and food festival we're going to plan next year where we're going to tap in, okay, to local agriculture and wineries. Governor Cuomo has a big push also too to try to create a loop in the Hudson Valley whereby boats would come up from the city, destination Kingston. They would jump off the boat, they would basically either stay overnight or be put on a bus, send them over to Rhinebeck, they go to Hyde Park, they go to Poughkeepsie, back to the city. The idea is that these waterfront ports, Kingston being the deepest, I believe, between Albany and New York, okay, and it would showcase the region's history, culture, sustainability, agriculture, food, and wine, which is an international draw for European and Asian tourists. So it's pretty exciting. It fits in nicely, but then there's also a piece where we have to focus on manufacturing, take advantage of our healthcare industry, as well as some of the high-tech manufacturers, which I've had some discussion with Mr. Hine about how we can pursue that.
Great. Let's talk about some of the other things that are going on in the city in terms of filling some of the empty spaces that we're facing in the upcoming years. We'll do that when we come back.
Yes, sir.
You're watching Kingston Now. We'll be back in just a minute. Welcome back to Kingston Now. This week we're at City Hall with Kingston Mayor Shayne Gallo. So it's been almost a year. What kind of grade would you give yourself for the first year?
I guess it would depend on the issue.
Well, are you fair to yourself when you do a self-assessment?
I think, in answer to your question, okay, the public is now adamant and demanding that you are engaged, that you are participating in the events throughout the community. You're visible. You're accessible. And nowadays, elected officials lose sight of what it's all about. You have to be accessible to the public. There's just too many critical issues. People are hurting out there. And be it with a quality of life issue, or be it with their taxes, be it with just the concerns that they have within their neighborhoods. And I get into a lot of trouble with my family and my lady friend because I'm out 6 nights or 6 days a week. And it's not unheard of on a Saturday to have 3 or 4 events right on into the evening. So it takes a toll. You're right. I have, unfortunately, I can't say no. And for instance, last night I had an invitation to go to the governor's reception, Governor Cuomo's reception, which was an honor to be asked at the governor's mansion. And I was on the radio Saturday, and prior to being on the radio, the St. Joseph's kids were there with their violins, and the principal, Mrs. Dolomar, was there, and they looked at me and they said, "Are you coming to our concert Monday evening?" And I says, "Well, I have a conflict. I'm supposed to go to Governor Cuomo's reception." I said, "I don't know." So I thought about it, and the kids basically, with their little eyes, they shamed me into doing it. But it's in all sincerity.
So now there's your opportunity for you to pass a note to the governor yourself, like the note that gets passed to you.
Well, I'm sure I sent him a nice letter yesterday thanking him, but with regrets. And I'm pretty confident and certain the governor would understand the priorities here. And in this day and age, it's a priority to be accessible to people, particularly when there's an issue of concern to them. And it's tough because there's just not enough time in the day, to be able to get everywhere. But it is taxing, though.
So when something like Kingston Hospital comes up and they say, well, it looks like we're going to close, this building. What happens for you? How do you move that forward in a positive way?
Well, I look at it, and I hate to be simple and cliche, but it's the old take lemons and make lemonade. There's an opportunity. I had a good discussion with Mike Hahn yesterday. Congressman Gibson's on board too. Healthcare is the largest employer in the county. It's a $100 million payroll here in the city. It's a $300 million regional impact. There's 1,500 plus employees. 600 people could lose their jobs next door. And they very well, it's going to with the change. Now the state has preliminarily approved, some kind of plan to transfer services, but it's still not final. And then there's the issue of funding. I think it's potentially $40 or $50 million they need to transfer the services up to Benny. That'll free up and be accessible potentially. I'm in discussion with a developer it's the same developer, by the way, who just received the bid for Golden Hill. He's doing exciting things. Just as a side note, that Golden Hill project, in 2013, the Department of Health of the state will give approval. He'll be able to operate with the certificate. In 2014, Mike Hahn and I were talking yesterday again that you're very well going to see that on the tax rolls in Kingston. That's exciting. That means next door, then he will have the opportunity to potentially, bid on or be in discussions with the Health Alliance next door for either a medical or a dental college with senior assisted living as well. He's a very, very credible doctor and business person. So in sum, it's an opportunity that we could really, really take advantage of. Across the street here, Carnegie Center, BOCES is going to be putting in two programs coming up, and then SUNY at Ulster is going to be putting in the nursing campus at Sophie Finn, which is closing next June. So you literally have within quarter mile of City Hall, an educational hub or center that's in the makes, a healthcare education hub and center in the making. And which is pretty exciting. And the superintendent, Palladino, Paul and I have had quite a bit of discussion about his curriculum academy ideas for the high school, which would then key in to what I just stated, this educational hub here, be it healthcare, be it a government academy, be it a high-tech academy. BOCES is a jewel that no one really understands or knows about. And shame on me, I went there recently, because this is all keyed into economic development, and as I stated, taking a look at these buildings that are closing and repurposing them and using education to facilitate a career path for our children and adults trying to make a transition to a new career, keeping them local. So what do? There's a surgical program that I was not aware of, at BOCES. It's the only one nationally certified between Danbury and the city. The kids there at BOCES, teamed up with the New Paltz engineering students along with the SUNY of Ulster engineering students, and they whooped MIT's kids, with their solar-powered car competition. That's impressive.
That's the Kansas City Royals beating the New York Yankees, right?
And
World Series, yeah.
So you have the capability. So Mike and I were talking yesterday. We want to put together this government educational partnership with the Chamber of Commerce, with the leaders of healthcare, with the leaders of manufacturing, so that we can help train and market this area, okay, to prospective employers within that industry or employers here local, so that we can really target and create that path for our children and others who want to make a transition to a new career. So rail trails are great. They afford an interest in Kingston, making it a destination. Ships from the city coming up are great for tourism, with respect to history, with respect to our culture, etc. Our art community, that's great to draw people. But at the end of the day, the Colony Liquor Project, where hopefully everything is going the way it should be, you have 100, 150 jobs potentially to Stable and Wolftech, to high-end manufacturers. They need qualified employees. Alcoa down in Kingston Business Park, which is a $40 million division of what? $1 billion company, Alcoa Industries. People don't understand that we have these employers here, but those employers need our help, and we can do it with education, and we can have this partnership where we have the capacity to obtain federal and state funding, tying into BOCES, tying into SUNY, tying into the Kingston School District, tying into those respective sectors of the economy locally, and then drawing in others, okay, to take advantage of a qualified, educated labor pool.
Thank you for your time today, and good luck in the upcoming year.
And I thank you, and thank you for spending time with me here at City Hall.
That's it for this week's show. Our thanks to Mayor Shayne Gallo and his confidential secretary, Ellen DeFalco. You can find all our shows archived on our YouTube channel. You can find that link on our Facebook page. For Kingston Now, I'm Jimmy Buff. We'll see you next time.